Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO Deck Deep Dive, this time with the 119, as that deck just got buffed a bit, and that is enough here to argue that it is pretty solid again in its niche, as the heavy of heavy boys, in 1v1 as well even. It's obviously in team games, it has been present forever, but in 1v1 it's back into business as well, in my eyes, is it has survivability in the early game now, and we're gonna talk about that and why I think this deck really can potentially be a great pick in tournaments and even maybe some fun stuff for ranked. Before we really jump in here, a quick shout out to the April Swiss 2v2 tourney, as we will have on the 12th of April another 2v2 one-day Swiss tournament with up to 32 teams. You can sign up now with a teammate, pick 4 divisions, and you will pick out of those in the game. Always quick setup between the games. No elimination with the Swiss format. You don't get eliminated when you lose. You just will get other teams that have a similar standing to you in each round. So that you will have really good matchmaking for 2v2 here as well. And just will have full 6 hours of fun in front of you when you sign up. So get your best mate, sign up for the tournament, and have some fun. No matter what skill level, you will have good games. You will have other teams of similar skill level that you will meet in the later rounds, no matter if you're going for the prize and just run through it, or you are newer to the game and just want to have some fun with some friends. There will be other teams there as well that will be similar and that you will meet in the tournament. And yeah, let's move on with the deep dive. So let's start in the logistics tab, where we start with a leader and 2 supply units. Good Ural, good Mi-8 MT, and BTRs here coming around. Ural, because the MTLB snaps are not quite enough to really repair vehicles on the front line, and the Mi-8 because you sometimes need fast supplies with this deck because your tanks can't stay out of combat for all that long. So if you get a tank damaged and you need a supply quickly on the front line, the Mi-8 8MT, if you can keep the air clean, can be really helpful. And keeping the air clean, deck is actually pretty good at. So getting this in there quickly to the front line is quite nice. Infantry tab is obviously one of the massive issues, but also surprisingly a strong point of this deck. As unlike most tank divisions, this deck actually gets special forces and forward deploy. Special forces at that. As it gets Spetsnaz and Spetsnaz OP, and these are super important because being able to contest about everything in an opener with some of the best CQC infantry in the game with the Spetsnaz, and having good AT to kill off enemy light vehicles that try to maybe ambush you is super important in the early game to stay alive, get enough space on the map, and so that you don't just get run over and taken down immediately. So these 2 units are super key. And then we have a BMP 1 with Motostrelkis. That is a solid little BMP infantry. Can come along and yeah, does the job. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. We get Saparis in a BTR, and we get Polomachikis, as they're pretty good at defense, and that's where you need them, and just holding off enemy infantry whilst you get enough other stuff onto the battlefield. You obviously have to be really reserveful, but it's actually giving you decent amount of stuff here in this deck. Artillery tab, we got some masters, and they do their job. The artillery is pretty okay. You can even go into a bit of spam with these. They are really solid guns, 152 millimeters. The rate of fire is not amazing, but they're long range as well, so they are pretty accurate. So you can smack stuff quite nice, and if you can even go into a bit of an artillery duel, but you have to micro them a lot, which, as you have to micro your tanks really carefully as well, can be a bit troublesome. So be somewhat careful how you play them. Vajilek can be a bit annoying as well for the enemy, but it's pretty supply costly if you just fire away with it, and you can't quite afford that. And it's also still not amazing, can't fire smoke, so there's an issue. And Buratino is still super expensive to reload. It has the thermobaric trait. It's fantastic for team games. It's pretty terrible still in 1v1, as you just can't afford the supply costs. If this goes down to maybe even 2,000. Like if it's so that you can resupply it a bit easier, but more likely like 1.8, 1.7, the unit here becomes a lot more interesting again if you can actually afford reloading it. As currently, one shot costs you more than 1/3 of a supply card, and yeah, it should go around slightly under 1/3 so that you can refuel it and a couple of other units maybe a bit as well, and that then it would be at a sweet spot there, I believe. Tank tap, obviously the key part of this deck, as that's where the heavy boys come in. And we take 3 of the heaviest of boys upvetted. You will lose 1, you will potentially even lose 2. You have to keep the 3rd one on the battlefield. Like that's kind of how the guys work. And you get some U's as well. And if you can get 2 UDs and 2 U's on the battlefield or so, or 1 T80B VKA and one of the others here onto the battlefield each, and you just have such a force on the battlefield. Like this can really win you the late game super hard. They are pretty good defensively as well, thanks to the good ATGMs. The reflex is a solid missile there, and that really helps out these guys being decent on the defense as well, and just staying out of it while still having some impact. But obviously, they're pretty pricey for just being an ATGM swinging unit, so you want to use them for their capabilities eventually as well. But the transition is the hard part, and that's where the TO55 comes in. And they just got buffed in availability, meaning that you now can take them on veterancy and get decent enough numbers. And yeah, we take them on 2 vet here, both cards of them, and that gets you 8 of them onto the battlefield. And that is really important. That is really, really important to get you into the late game where you can afford the T80Us with a bit of cost and efficiency, with tanks that can stop APCs and IFVs and deal decent damage against infantry as well. So the TO55s there, super impactful change there for this deck, helping them out quite a lot. BRDM 2 Conquers coming along with good ATGMs for cheap, good flanking protection unit, good stealth helping out as well, getting the ambush on IVs and so on. So BRDM 2 Conquers, key unit here to keep the cost efficiency high up in the earlier stages so that you can afford the late game onslaught. And then the Recon tab, where you get some really important units as well. First of all, because it's more infantry numbers, which you really lack in the infantry tab, so getting some full strength kind of recon infantry here is pretty helpful just for the infantry fights already. Spetsnaz GRU, you don't really want to fight, but they can fight. But more importantly, they give you the great recon capabilities so that your tanks can actually see and shoot the enemy, as those tanks want to shoot enemy. BRM 1K, same thing. You want to keep that with your tank plop. You want to keep those slightly in front of your tanks to spot the enemy, and that's the combo there. And then the BMP2, that's the new unit here. The BMP2 Rajvetka, really helping out as a recon unit, as that also gives you Conquerors and gives you BMP2s, gives you an autocannon that you otherwise wouldn't have in this deck, and that really, really helps dealing with enemy forward deployment and helping out winning the fights there, and also just having a good Conquerors launcher here once more. That can help out in the tank blob with its good optics somewhat as well. It's not great there, but it can do that, and it's just a really nice vehicle to really help out, and a big improvement here for this deck that you get some autocannons that you didn't get before when it was only a BMP1 that wouldn't quite be able to do the same job. AA tab, we have some Tunguskas. Let's put the veterans, the upvetted one, to the front, as you want to use that one, these ones first, just to keep your first couple of units on the battlefield somewhat safe from the air, especially against helicopters, also pretty important. Iglas here, decent man pads, upvetted as well. Second card of Tunguskas, so you can ramp up the numbers there without vet. So 6 on the battlefield, that should be enough. If you have to pay more than the price for 6 Tunguskas, something is most likely going wrong in the game, and you're most likely going to lose anyways. Investing more than 3 minutes of AA into the game, especially then also with Iglas, and we will see the planes. That's just not something you can afford. So Tunguskas here, second one without veterancy, first one with veterancy here. Helicopters, fantastic. Me-20 4Ps here, good rockets, great cocons. D24V really good at this as well. So pretty helpful there, holding flanks, killing off light infantry units, and dealing with IFVs as well with the amazing Cocon ATGM. So really, really impactful unit as well. That you get a good helicopter tap is a key thing for this deck, so that you can keep the flexibility up and help out infantry that is maybe a bit isolated, where you can't bring IFVs or tanks because you just can't afford them, and just bring a helicopter around there to do that. And then another key feature of this deck is its fantastic ASF loadout. You get up to 8 fighters if you want. We take 6 fighters here, 4 SU27s, amazing fighters for 250 points nowadays. Great number of missiles, 10 missiles. 30 ECM is good. Missiles are all also high quality. And the speed is not so great, the turn rate is not so great, but the rest really performs fantastically. MiG-29 doesn't quite get the number of missiles, does get lower ECM, but it gets the better turn time, and it's just a bit cheaper, so really solid there as well. And then the SU24HE can dish out good damage, can help out stunning down an enemy plop or so if they try to just run you down with numbers. SU24 can help out there, can help out against infantry, can help out against annoying ATGM positions and so on. So that's really where those come in, and they can keep the enemies low as well. And that's 119. So let's talk about strengths and weaknesses. Strengths: forward deployment in the tank tab and the tank division. Good forward deployment in general. Strength number 2: best heavy tanks in the game for the Soviets, and maybe even in the game. Like the extra ATGM and so on this is pretty nice, though the HA most likely is still better, but yeah, great heavy tanks. And then good AA, good ASFs, good air superiority is key as well. Weaknesses is low numbers of infantry, and that for sure is key. No great strike aircraft, and that could be helpful as well. And a lack of middle ground in general. Like, you have high cost unit and you have low cost unit. You don't really have that cost efficient middle ground with a lot of BMP2 units, a lot of T80BVs, Leo 2A3s, MX30s or so, T62s, like all of that you're lacking. So that's an issue here as well for this deck. But in general, it is back into the business with the low end of it being more efficient now, so that the high end can actually get in there. And I'm really excited to get into the ranked game with you guys there, because I think this deck really has it in it again. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.